Hi there, friends. Stephen Petasky here, founder of the Luxus Group. Thanks so much for hopping on the show today. This is a slightly different format than usual. Instead of shooting a video with some edits and some pictures, I'm actually going to take you through a PowerPoint. Today is all about education. It's note-taking day. If you are in the mindset of buying and managing a short-term rental, or call it an Airbnb, or you have one and you're looking to increase its revenue, reduce its costs, and effectively get more enjoyment and profitability out of that particular property, this is the show for you. We are giving our 15 years of knowledge summed up into 20 minutes on this video. Well, we'll see how long I go. It could run longer than that, but very quick. Put it all together in one package to make it really easy for you to pull some really great nuggets, learn from our experience, learn from our mistakes, and a chance to basically become educated in this space. And if it's your first time thinking about this Airbnb, hopefully this inspires you to do it. I know so many people who have dove into this amazing new industry, and they're making 5 figures, 6 figures, and some people who are scaled, they're making 7 figures a year by simply activating assets they either already own or intentionally are investing in this space. So I'm super passionate about this space, and you'd see from previous videos, I love talking about the buying, selling, and managing properties, but today is like truly about tactics. So you're going to see in this screen, I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint here in a moment. But before we do that, if it was your first time through the show, thank you so much for being here. Obviously, you heard about it from someone, or maybe you stumbled across it. But either way, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you do like it, go back and see the inventory. We've done some really good shows with some great content that's been feedback from you. It's been our viewers that have told us what they want to hear about. They wanted to know about how Airbnb got started and why. They want to know what destination spotlights. I'm thinking about buying in Hawaii, but I'm not quite sure what island I should look at. We cover all these different things on this channel. So subscribe, like it, share it. But actually, before you do that, don't do any of that. If you get one nugget of information here that you find value in, then I do ask that you do all those things. That's our only fee. It's a no cost to consumer program. But my ask is, if you find any sort of value, to please subscribe, share, like, and of course, the more people we can spread this out to, the better. So without further ado, in this virtual broadcasting studio, I have someone helping me in the background who's going to bring up our slide deck right now. And I'm going to take you through how effectively to operate a luxury Airbnb. Now, I want to get one thing clear. Airbnb is owning basically like the branding around a luxury Airbnb. It's really a luxury short-term rental, or STR. So really is a short-term rental, but people are so associated with the brand of Airbnb, it's easy to basically share and use that as a tool. But it doesn't matter. Your short-term rental may never be on Airbnb. It may be on HomeAway or VRBO or another listing platform. But Airbnb is, in fact, the biggest, baddest person in the space. So let's talk about them first. Now, a lot of people don't really know the history, so hopefully this gives you a bit of context of where it all started. But it stands for Air Bed and Breakfast, and founded in 2008. Interesting enough, our company, which we founded in 2007, was pre-Airbnb, obviously. If you do want to know more about our why and our company, go back to the first episode. It'll show up on the screen here. But Airbnb has had a phenomenal success story. And here's the interesting thing, they're not a real estate company. They're a technology company that lives in the Airbnb space, or lives in the rental space. They've done a phenomenal job building their brand, making it mainstream, so much that I'm using it in my own terminology to call things luxury Airbnb when it should be a Luxus short-term rental. So where have they grown from? From a single couch for rent? Well, they have 7 million rooms. That is phenomenally huge. Think of Marriott, biggest hotel brand in the world. You think they're close? Not even close. 1.4 million rooms. So you think about Marriott back in 2007, thinking, oh, we own the market, we're the biggest in the world. And then this technology company, this little startup in 2008, all of a sudden completely rolls in and dominates the industry by bringing on millions and millions of rooms over the course of the last 14 years. It's been a really great success story, and they've added a lot of much needed sophistication in the industry because it was very broken as an industry. If you go way back, all you really had back then is what people would commonly refer to as VRBO. So VRBO is your vacation rental by owner. That was the standard program and protocol that people rented their homes on. It is what it says. It was very basic platform, and Airbnb disrupted it for everyone. And so much so that everyone else has either been knocked off, bought up, or they've had to level up their game like VRBO has done. They've done doing a much better job now than they were in order to stay relevant and stay competitive in the space. So what have they done in that time? Well, aside from adding 7 million rooms, they've triggered the single biggest disruption to government regulation and short-term rentals. Well, at least in our modern generation, I don't think it ever existed before. So we'll call it ever. And in terms of the history of mankind, they created the most amount of disruption because short-term rentals really weren't the thing. And basically, ownership meant you could do what you want with the home. Well, eventually, as time went on, there became some restrictions, and homeowners associations would restrict short-term rentals. Maybe the odd city would govern it. Airbnb has specifically, through how quickly they've grown, has forced every government that resides in a lifestyle destination. And I say a lifestyle destination, places generally people want to go to vacation. They've forced them all to look at their STR rules, which we're going to come back to later, to ensure that they are governing these Airbnb rules to that they get their either regulate it through stopping it, creating a moratorium. They regulate it through creating a tax revenue stream from it. And they've actually had to go through this amazing process. And there's been votes, there's been protests on both sides. It's been really quite interesting to watch the last decade, in particular, the last 4 or 5 years, and in particular, the last 2 years during COVID, where things have accelerated. The demand for this type of lifestyle has accelerated so much that more and more people are now targeting Airbnb type properties to use, live, work, and play. So it's been really interesting to watch. Super, as a person who's kind of a real estate nerd like myself, I've been being able to watch this from the sidelines and almost in a direct parallel with them. Our company is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction their size, but we run in a similar space. So personally, I think it's a great thing for the industry, despite the disruption. Overall, our government's needed regulation around the space in order to give clarity on how investors can participate. We're going to talk about that later. So as we shift to the next slide here, we are going to move our way into the DIY model. So what does that mean? Well, it's the do-it-yourself. I'm not really going to talk today about scaling this. Obviously, scaling is the concept of doing a multiple. Now, you could take this DIY model on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, but if you're starting to think 10 plus, you're becoming a far more sophisticated operation. That's a different conversation, and maybe I'll do a video on that later if we have enough viewers that are interested in understand about what it's like to scale. Our company, we peaked at managing over 50 properties globally in this space through our funds. And so we understand the complexities that exist when you create scale at that level. But for today's purpose, we're really focus on your very first one or your first couple properties, how to invest, what to look at. Now, overall, the DIY model, when you're talking 1 or 2 properties, there's tremendous benefit. There is tax advantages. I'm not a tax accountant, so do not listen to me about this. Check in with your own. But there are tax advantages. There's depreciation in real estate. That's why so many people participate in real estate. There's the ability to defer revenue or defer taxes. There's the ability to use your property. So just look into those. And again, with a good accountant, we'll explain to you some of the advantages of going down that way, parking capital in this space. Second, revenue creation, a supplementary form of income for your family that's beyond potentially just your main income. So what a great way to have passive income come in the side. Capital preservation. A lot of people are looking for different places to put their money now. The stock market is at all-time highs. There's obviously been disruption with things going on in the world right now, but the market is high. And a lot of people, and I'm not going to talk about the stock market. I do not know if it's going up or down or whatever. A lot of people have felt they've made enough out of that. Maybe I should take some chips off the table. Where do I park it? People love real estate. So one thing about real estate, and it can reset, and we're going to talk about that actually in a future episode, we talk about another episode around the current market conditions today, and are we triggering ourselves and rolling ourselves into another crash? I don't think so. So I'm just going to pre-wire that for a future episode. Check it out. I think there's still room to go up, but preserving capital is a key component. Bricks and mortar offers that. So definitely a good reason to get into the DIY Airbnb model. There's also this nice thing of personal usage. If you have a property and it's at your favorite lake and you're renting it out passively, well, guess what? You can still use your home. That's amazing. It's incredible to be able to have your own portfolio of private vacation homes that you can use for your personal family benefit. What an amazing thing. In addition to income, I get to use it, and that saves money on your vacation. So a big win there. And when you're talking 1 or 2 properties, you can manage it in-house. Unlike our model, outside these doors, we've got 20 staff that run asset management, they run concierge, they run accounting, they run some of the growth of the organization or development side. And that's when you actually have to have a real team behind it. But when you're at 1 or 2 or 3, you can take care of it in-house. You can manage the books, you can outsource it, you can manage the vacation rentals themselves, you can have a local property manager and cleaning person on contract. But overall, there's so many unique benefits of this. And so I'm a big fan of it. It's something to get into if you like the concept of these advantages that exist in renting your property. So before we dive into how to do it, let's talk about what not to do. So most common mistakes in the DIY model are, first off, wrong acquisition. From an acquisition perspective, is most people, let's say most, maybe I might be generalizing a bit, but a lot of people listen to what their friend tells them or what someone on YouTube tells them. Don't listen to everyone on YouTube. They're not all accurate. But they're picking something that they think is right. But really, you have to think what's right for you. We're going to cover that because picking the right property, in particular if it's your first one, is really, really critical to get right. So don't do the wrong acquisition. Second, this mistake is made so frequently still, it boggles my mind, but it's not an STVR or short-term vacation rental friendly community. I'm going to cover that next, but this mistake was made a lot more common pre-pandemic, pre-regulation. Realtors are a little more sophisticated these days to explain this, but never take it for granted. Ask this question, again, coming up on a future slide. Everyone, including ourselves and our business, has underestimated the capital requirements when you're acquiring a home. Sure, you buy a home, let's say it's $1 million for a round number, but then all the additional things you have to go put into it, such as furniture. Usually people think it's a couple percent, usually it's 10% the value of your home. Quality linens, quality glassware, repairs and maintenance, the furnace. There's just a lot of things that you underestimate or the cost to set up a home properly to sustain someone who's coming and going through a transient nature versus just you and your own personal residence. So big issue, and a lot of people make that mistake. Also, do not know the true operational costs. There should be almost no excuse for this, but it's still very hard sometimes to get this information from the seller, from the seller's agent. We have a tool we'll cover here later at what questions to ask so you can really get the true operational costs. You don't get some surprise bill from the HOA, like an assessment that happens every year that you didn't know about, or the utilities are 3 times as high in this community where they are at home. So we don't like surprises. It's all about getting the right information. A lot of people don't realize the work. There is work involved. That's not all freebie and just checks show up in the mail. You do got to invest in time. However, when we talk about the different ways you can rent your home, there are fully serviced third-party agencies that will do everything for you, but they take a bigger cut. So if you want less work, there's ways to do it. If you want more work, you can make more money. We'll come back to that. And the final thing is, I would say, is the emotional buy. It's a very common mistake because when you're thinking of doing an Airbnb, quite often it comes from this, not necessarily an investment lens, it comes more from an emotional lens. I really want this house on the lake because it's beautiful. I can see my kids jumping off the dock and it's incredible. And they buy that, but they don't actually take into account the first issues. Financially, does it actually make sense? Is it a good acquisition? Can I actually rent it? How much money is it going to take to put into it? What does it cost to operate it? These are the issues. So we look at buying an Airbnb as a scale, and it's a combination between a lifestyle decision and financial. Unless you're true 100% investment status, and that's what you're focused on, then you don't worry about the emotions. It's all about the underwriting. It's all about evaluating the home to ensure it's making the most amount of money. The reality is most people on their first acquiring is they want to use it for personal use as well. So you have to balance that scale out to ensure that we allow the time that you get that additional enjoyment, but don't buy it based purely on emotion. Okay, let's shifting gears here. So that is to set you up for what's to come. Let's actually run through the tactical steps of each one of these various things to do. Now, this is where the note-taking comes into play. Of course, you can watch this YouTube channel many times over and over if you like in order to get this information again. So before we kick it off, a little water. The buy. Okay, how do I acquire? So you need to understand your personal motivators. And I already kind of referenced this, is that a lot of people, what is the most important? Is this pure money or is this pure lifestyle? Well, if it's pure lifestyle, the rental thing doesn't matter because you're going to keep it for yourself. But how much lifestyle? Will I use this lake property 2 months in the summer? I'm just trying to create a little bit of revenue in the spring and fall. Or is my goal to rent as much as possible, and then I'm just going to slide myself into the gaps in order to, capitalize on that personal time? This is a decision that goes beyond one person in the family. Personally, I believe this is a family decision, because I've seen in the past, you make it purely through an investment lens, and the spouse or the children or the other family members that potentially could be involved, they're like, well, why'd you do that? Like, I like the lake, but I don't want to be in this condo. I want to have a house. We should make this decision together. So I look at the buy as being a family decision, a family discussion, because I'm basing this on the assumption there's going to be personal use, and you want to create that enjoyment from a lifestyle perspective, because it brings so much value than just the check showing up in the mail. So you have to understand this first and foremost around the acquisition. And talk to your family, make it a family decision. It becomes very fun and enjoyable. And when you land on something, you'll feel that much more confident that you made the right decision. So now, shifting ahead, STVR, friendly communities. So acronym, short-term vacation rentals. I'm going to encourage you to go back, and this will show up on the screen here, to go back to how Airbnb changed the rental space. I did a video on that. It gives you a lot more history in Airbnb. It talks about this regulation. Promise you, super valuable, very, very important if you're going into this space, because I will explain the context of what I'm going to explain now. The short version is this: a short-term vacation rental is generally defined almost universally around the globe as a neighborhood or community or city that allows vacation rentals for less than 30 days at a time. A long-term rental generally is considered 30 days or more. So think about it through that lens. I buy a property and I find out later that that community does not allow short-term rentals of 29 days or less. I'm stuck renting my place at 30 days or more time. So that can be really painful financially if you find that out after the fact, or you acquire something and a rule change happens. And that has happened a lot the last decade, because as Airbnb has grown in this world and government's been forced to regulate, what's happened is people have acquired these assets expecting they can rent them, and they were allowed to rent them. And then all of a sudden, Airbnb would change the law. I'll use an example. I think it was in Vancouver, Canada. They had, when Airbnb launched their new rules there, the city launched their rules to prevent these Airbnbs. I think it was about 75% of the inventory, the Airbnb inventory, was gone forever, permanently left the market. Because what was happening, and I don't blame the cities for doing this, people were buying whole floors on these apartment complexes built specifically for people to live. And then people would rent these out to partiers and weekend goers, and people are in for events and conferences, but they would be in for 4 or 5 days at a time. So I'm a neighbor trying to get a good night's sleep, and there's a partier in every weekend. It's not that enjoyable. So big cities, little cities, everything in between have been forced to regulate. So don't get caught on that. Understand the rules. And that moves me to the second point. Your broker should know the rules. If you ask them, when you find a really good broker, hey, can you explain to me the short-term vacation rental laws in your city? And they're like, oh yeah, you can totally rent it out. Don't believe them. Promise you, unless there's one of those very specific places, most should answer with this: it's complicated, but there's ways to do it. If a city's already gone through its regulation, it's very specific on where you can rent. If a city's in the middle of its regulation and they're debating it, they probably don't have a perfect answer. So I'll take Big Island as an example. We have an amazing broker there, and I'll give a shout out for Molly Harris. We just did a video together. Go back and check that one out. You want to learn about the Big Island. But Big Island, if you would have called Molly 3 or 4 years ago, she would have shared to say, well, you know what? There is regulation that's happened on the other islands. There's probably regulation that's going to happen here, but it hasn't happened yet. And we're unsure what the outcome is going to be. Then in, I believe, May 2021, I could be off by a bit, but the Big Island regulated. And what did they do? They knocked off all Airbnb short-term rentals outside of the resort communities, subject to a grandfather clause for a few people that had already been operating them. This wiped off a ton of Airbnb inventory. So if you were to call Molly now, she would know exactly where to direct you, not just the communities, the master planned beachfront communities, but then the specific communities within the master plan. So let's break that down. There's like the government level, there's the everyone level, and then there's everyone on the island. Then there's these master plan communities where there's like 1,000 or 2,000 homes. Within that, there's these little communities that could be from 10 homes to 50 homes, and they have their own rules. So think of the complexity. If your broker does not understand this at this level, they're going to be learning. And I don't know if you want them to be learning alongside you when you're going to be placing a multi 6-figure, 7-figure investment. You need to find someone who already knows it so you don't get caught in a situation where you miss a deal or an opportunity, or worse, you acquire and find out after the fact that it was the wrong place to be. So I know I'm beating this one to death, but it's like critically important because I've seen good friends of mine make this mistake. And it's so frustrating because they could just call and I'd be able to give them good advice. But don't make this mistake. Understand the rules. And remember, the rules are your advantage because I promise you others are making a mistake still, even with regulation. Good broker will direct you to the right spot. They'll understand the rules and they'll make sure they get informed, and then they'll make sure you're in the right community. So when you acquire, you're safe to rent your home the way you want to rent it so that you don't get caught in a situation like so many people do. So use it to your advantage. Next slide. So this is just a quick one, is that we call underwriting, in the financial industry, you're underwriting a business or a real estate asset, but basically you're doing the financial modeling that says, does this actually make sense financially? However, again, when you're underwriting from a lifestyle perspective, how do you underwrite your personal emotion? Like, how do you underwrite what's like in your heart and what your gut's telling you? It's really hard. This is where I mentioned before, you're bringing your family in the equation. You're having these chats about your personal use and the type of travel. And are you traveling with friends? Are you traveling with loved ones? You're traveling with children, grandchildren, legacy. These are all part of your underwriting process, in addition to the financial underwriting, which should happen in parallel. So you're blending these decisions to say, financially, and ideally, you get to an outcome. Financially, wow, this makes sense. This could make me six figures a year, $100,000 a year. And I'm going to get a month of really great family vacation time that my family is going to really, really enjoy. And that carries amazing value as well. Perfect fit, pull the trigger, let's write the check. So I've hit the family side, but I'm going to hit the next slide here. We have this rental analysis tool. And it is really important because we give this to our clients effectively and on the advisory side. And I'll talk a bit about our advisory side and what that can mean to you if you're interested. But how we help people navigate with this very simple tool. I know you can't read this. It's too small to read. It's too small for me to even see it. But it's a very simple Excel document that anyone can build. But actually, most people don't, because most people learn after the fact some of the mistakes. Use this tool. If you're a client of ours, use this tool because it shows you, okay, how much is it going to cost? What's my projected revenue? What's my projected operating expenses? What's my NOI or my net operating income? And it spits out the number. Very, very simple tool. Again, you can create it yourself in Excel in half an hour. So it's don't overthink it's something, some sophisticated model that can't be replicated, but we've already created it. And we give this tool to our clients, and then they ask these questions of their agents and of the seller to ensure they get the correct information. And you actually have the financial underwriting in your hand to know how it's going to look financially at the end of the day. So don't guess and don't let them say, oh yeah, this place, here's a common thing. I hear this all the time. Brokers or the sellers, oh yeah, I rent this thing out for $200,000 a year every year. Like, no problem. Okay, well, show me the rental receipts or whatever. It's like, oh, well, it's like my uncle, I did like a private thing. So again, don't use them. They're part of the information conduit to populate it. I'm not saying that people are unethical. It's not what I mean, but a seller's motivated to sell. So they're going to give you the information that's going to help you buy it, probably not to help deter you from buying it. So use the information from them. Use the information from the market, use the information from your broker. That will form your information conduit that you can use to put in a tool like this to make an informed decision financially if it makes sense. So, okay, shifting gears. Financially makes sense. We're good to go. We're going to talk about the setup. So first off, when you're going to invest into a setup, you're going to have FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. When we look at our properties, and we've been through multiple iterations of this over the course of the past, 15 years, I guess, and we run in called the mid-luxury space. So these are properties from, call it 500 grand to 4 million is that range. So not the ultra high-end luxury, not kind of starter homes, but entry-level properties. So our clients have an expectation of a certain quality and a certain experience when they walk into a property. So I'm going to use that as the example, but this can be applied to anyone, whether you go super luxury or you go entry level, it's all good. But you have to have the right FF&E that fits the client's needs and expectations of that property. So first off, our clients would expect a high degree of luxury, but not opulent luxury. We call comfortable luxury. You walk in, it's comfortable, it feels livable, it feels like a place that you want to spend time, not something where you feel like you can't touch a piece of fine china because you're going to break it. And I've stayed in places like that with friends of ours that own some of these really opulent places, and it's actually uncomfortable because I'm not sure if I should sit on the couch. It's too perfect. So comfortable luxury for us has been kind of our brand, where it's beautiful and feels warm and livable, but not necessarily a place that you feel like you can't actually use. So that's number one. Second, you want to make sure it's a great guest experience. So the individual pieces. So not only are you going to have something that looks and feels aesthetically pleasing, that is functionally connected and consistent with what your client expectations are. So that could be things like high quality linens, high quality towels, all the right, good sized coffee mugs and the right amount of wine glasses and a turkey baster for Thanksgiving. All these aspects, when people don't almost put any value on this, when you go and stay at a property for the first time, or when you book a property rather, but when you stay at it for the first time, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got 12 wine glasses for me and my company coming over versus half your guests drinking, wine out of a coffee mug because there's 6 wine glasses and 2 are chipped. So this is really important to have a really nice setup so that you don't have to overdo it. It doesn't mean overspending on it. It's just accurately spending to have a specific list. And then the final element too with the setup is your property manager. Let's assume it's not you, but if it's you, you'll understand your setup standard. Your property manager is very clear what the standard is so they can replenish accordingly because things do get damaged. Someone breaks out wine glass. Someone drops the water pitcher or whatever it is. They understand their ability to acquire those assets, replenish, and ensure that the next guest experience is equally as special as the previous one. But what happens, I see quite often in rental properties, is that standard is not defined and the operational procedures or the SOPs are not in place. And what happens is you stay at a property for the first time. It was really good. I'm a client now, and I stay there a year. I'm really excited to book it. And the linens are stained, and the housewares aren't there, and there's like 6 plates, and it's a mess. So don't be that person. Be the Airbnb operator, the short-term rental operator that stays on top of these things. We're talking hundreds of dollars a year, not thousands of dollars generally. So you can really make a positive impact by replicating that experience down the road to encourage those rebookings, because that's where you're going to make your money. And we'll hit that on the revenue side coming up shortly. Now let's fire through some of the common mistakes of the setup process. We've done all of these, so I'm definitely not preaching. I'm speaking through experience. First off, especially early stages, we totally underestimated the cost to set up a home properly. I usually peg a number at 10% now, so $1 million home, $100,000 of furniture. Most people think they can get it for cheaper, and you can. If you're hustling and you're working the Costco and you could definitely do it for cheaper if you have the time and the ability to do it. But quite often, depends what market you're in, especially with COVID delays and pricing, everything going on, you're buying what you can get. So expect around 10%. If you can do better, great. Second mistake that's very common is the home's too personal. People are like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to put on like my favorite art. And I love yellow. So I'm going to paint the wall yellow. And I love, patterned sheets. So like I'm going to put patterned sheets. And I'm not mocking it, but there's a reason why every luxury hotel in the world has white linens. It's not like by accident. They do it because it's the most durable, easiest to clean, easiest to please, always ranked the highest from a client satisfaction perspective. So like as a base example, do white linens, do all the mattress protectors and pillow protectors and all the things. But I'll come back to that durability, but don't make it too personal. People don't want to see photos. I mean, disrespect. They don't want to see photos of your personal family on the walls when they're on holidays. It makes it feel like they're staying in someone else's house versus staying in a beautiful rental home or a hotel. So you don't want it impersonal. It's okay to have unique elements to the house to make it feel special and unique and encourage rebookings and people to come back, but not to the point that it feels like you're living in someone's personal house who just moved out for the weekend for you to move in. You want to try to eliminate that. Try to eliminate one-offs around the FF&E side. So I remember back in 2008, 9, 10, I'll be off by a year, when linens and things was around. I think they're back now. Could be back, but they were going out of business. And I went in and bought all these sheets for one of our properties. I thought, I saved so much money. This is so great. They kind of have like a white pattern to it. And then of course I could never get them back again. So when those sheets deteriorated, I had to start mixing and matching sheets. I eventually had to throw out the whole thing. So try not to do things that are one-off. Do things that you can buy and replicate, or a special type of wine glass or chinaware or something. Once that plate breaks, I guarantee you it's going to break. Some accidents happen all the time. If you can't replace it with the same one easily, you're setting yourself up for a challenge. Next thing, don't be cheap. Invest properly. Don't have to overinvest, but buy stuff that's quality. Restaurant quality. I usually think of a restaurant quality plate, fork, knife, glass, because they're meant to be disposable. They're meant to break from time to time, but they're also not so cheap that they fall apart in the dishwasher when you run them through. So you have to find the right balance on those types of things. And the final thing, the more of a laughing thing, but I promise it'll save you like gray hairs, is don't make the electronics too complicated. Everyone's like, you know, they pull out their phone and they have like, oh, you download the app when you arrive to the property and you can control the blinds and the Sonos and everything else. Or they have a universal remote. We've done like 30,000 vacations in Luxus. We literally have had to change electronics from these really sophisticated systems to a remote control for the TV and a remote control for the Apple TV. That simple. I've had calls personally, and I love the clients where they, you know, trying to watch Dancing with the Stars at Friday at 10 p.m. And they're like, Steve, how do I get the channel on to Dancing with the Stars? I don't know how this thing works, and the TV's not working, and they're unplugging things. Promise you, simple is better. They will appreciate it. You will appreciate it. They're going to get the same functionality, but electronic providers, such as like, you know, smart home guys, they're always going to try to upsell you that it's easy, and it is easy if it's your own home and you're familiar with it. It is not easy when 37 different people come stay at a property in the course of a year. Save yourself the hassle. Don't make that mistake. Okay, carrying on. What do we got here? Oh, just some photos here to show of our properties, how we set them up. I know these are small photos. It's hard to get like a really good indication, but you would look anything, how you line the bikes up, how we make the beds. It feels like a hotel. How we label every single one of the cabinets, so you know, wine glasses, champagne flutes, water pitcher, frying pans, salad bowls. So what this does is two things. It's if as a client, so I'm staying in a property, and I make dinner, and I'm on the last day, I'm unloading the dishwasher, and you're like, where's the salad bowl go? I can't remember which drawer. I'll just jam it into this drawer right here. And then the next person moves the pot somewhere else, and all of a sudden the wine glasses are in with the coffee mugs, because no one knows. So simplify it for your guests. We label every single thing so people know exactly where to put it. So it saves your property manager and your cleaner, who's trying to manage flips, usually within a 5-hour window. Usually it's 11 a.m. checkout and a 4 p.m. check-in. You're saving them time, but you're also making the client accountable, but they want to be accountable. No one likes leaving places in a mess, except for a few people. And we don't want those clients. You want people that are leaving it in a good state. And you can do that to help them by buying a simple label maker. And for about $10 in labels, you can save yourself tens of thousands of dollars over the course of the years of things that are broken, lost, put in the wrong place, and just making a bad experience for the next person. So hopefully that helps. We'll move on here. Okay. Shifting from cost and operations to the rental process. So there's really 3 strategies. This is really important to know, because this will influence your decision on what type of home you're able to buy. So the 3 ways are Airbnb style. We'll call it Airbnb as in using one of the distribution platforms that exist, such as Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO, so on and so forth. The next would be listing with a luxury rental agency. So your property needs to be at a certain threshold. Usually 2 million plus is probably a good number. Certainly some less than that, but generally speaking. And this is where they play a more active role. And we're going to cover each of these, so don't worry. And then there's the full service rental agencies where you don't worry about anything, and a check just shows up in the mail and you have your personal time. So let's dive into the first one around the do-it-yourself Airbnb. This is the true essence of do-it-yourself. Acquired the home, I've set it up myself, got all the furniture, I got the simple electronics, I got everything labeled, I'm totally ready to go. Now I'm going to start doing it myself by renting it on Airbnb. And you become effectively the revenue manager. Now I say Airbnb, remember, they don't have exclusivity over you. You can list on every single rental platform you want and have it in 10 different spots. Be everywhere. Some people are more familiar with VRBO, so have it listed there and have it on Airbnb and have it on HomeAway. And maybe there's a local listing agency that's in your particular market. But don't, if you're looking for distribution, do them all if you want to. It's no big deal. As I mentioned, this is the most common approach for 2 million or less. There is your responsibilities, and the fees are less because you're doing it yourself. You're talking mid to high single digits as your average fee are usually paying for this type of service. Now you have some owner tasks and responsibilities. You set the rates, but the distribution platforms will provide recommendations. You can make some adjustments. They're all a little bit different, so you have to work with your particular one. But what they do is try to prevent you from undercutting the neighbor or the local market, but there's some flexibility involved, but you have to be in charge of that. You have to approve bookings. So someone makes a booking, approval comes to you, you say, okay, I like this client, click yes. You're managing, this is where it gets a little more serious, you're managing the guest while in property. Remember, Airbnb does not manage the properties. They have 7 million rooms, which effectively is millions of homes, but each is an individual landlord of that home. So they're responsible to manage the guest bookings and manage the asset. So if you don't want to be dealing with, hey, I need to get groceries delivered, or hey, there's a mouse in the house, you're going to probably want option 2 or 3, probably really option 3 to be perfectly honest, because you have some responsibilities to the guest and to the platform in order to deliver a really good experience when they're in residence. So if you live close to the home though, and you can manage it yourself, or you have a great property manager, it's all good. It's a great way to set it up. And there's lots of people you can contract if you don't want to do this yourself, and you just pay them a monthly fee and they take care of all this stuff for you. No. So that's option number 1 to create revenue through those platforms. Option number 2, boutique luxury rental agencies. This is for your mid to high end luxury, 2 to 20 million, 20 million plus, even like 10 million plus. It gets into a different level. There's expectations of staffing in the housing and a whole bunch of different things. I'm not going to cover that, maybe in a future episode. Very similar, but the differences here is the booking agency, they provide the client, you give them windows of time that you're willing to rent, and they effectively take care of the booking and they manage the majority of the client needs. So big difference. They take a bigger fee, so they're taking 20 to 35%, but they take care of the client, the chef, and all the different things around it, so you don't have to worry about it. You have to usually, generally speaking, manage the asset though. So the luxury booking agency, called Luxury Retreats, says, hey, we have a water leak in the upstairs bathroom. Your job is to basically take care of that. They're running the concierge and client experience. You're running the asset and the property management experience. So that's number 2, really good place to be in that mid-luxury to luxury space. Finally, complete deviation from option 1 is your full service rental agencies. These are specific communities, usually condos, to be perfectly honest, most of the time. We're buying into a condo and you actually don't have a choice but to rent through them. They run a centralized booking system, a centralized rental platform, and you just toss it in their pool. You go pre-reserve your days. So I'm going to take 14 nights here and 7 nights here and a long weekend here. And then they take the rest of the time and you don't even know anything that goes on. They literally just rent it out. They pay all the costs and they send you a net amount, or you pay the cost and they send you a gross amount net of their fees. So very good way if you want least amount of energy after acquiring it, and you have to really target specific brands that have a good reputation for A, delivering revenue, and B, maintaining their asset, creating a good experience for the owner. All the homes usually are not personalized here. They usually furnish it. They do the housewares. They manage it all. So it really is quite simple. You pay for the service. 30 to 50% is the general fee revenue. So if $100,000 in revenue comes in, you're going to be getting, between $70,000 to $50,000 of that. So you really want to check, understand the rules around this, and so to make sure that this is a fit for you, you know what you're getting yourself into. Okay. Here's a few different things to kind of wrap up the revenue management side of you can hustle to get yourself extra business. So this is the edge. This is the difference where someone can generate that extra little bit of gravy for their bottom line. Personal referrals. Hustle your friends and family. Tell everyone about this amazing new lake property you just bought, and they should rent it from you because you're friends. That's what friends do for each other. So that gets bookings more than just relying on Airbnb distribution platforms. Set up a private rental site. Most of the time only for the higher end stuff, but hey, building a website these days is not that expensive. So you could set up your own private rental site and you can have people go through that. Eventually people can book directly through you and you save the fees as well. So that's a separate thing. Personal ad spend only really makes sense in the luxury space, but you can spend your own money to push things on Facebook in different angles. Special touches in the property. I've been to lots of properties where, we stocked with surfboards and paddle boards for you. Or when you show up, there's a bottle of wine in the fridge with a handwritten note. These little things will encourage a rebooking process for someone to come back next year. Constantly checking on the pricing to make sure you're to market. Don't look back and be mad at the distribution agent for having 6 months of no rentals because you're priced too high. monitor, you revenue manage your actual property. And then the final thing is revenue manage your property. Keep an eye on things, adjust things in the rates, and of course, that will help you make and get you a little bit extra revenue at the end of the day. Now, finally, property operations, just a shorty here this actually needs its own separate stage. You need good people. So if you're doing this by yourself, that's one thing, but assuming you're buying a place that's too far away for you to go and manage yourself, you need a good team. I like hiring, there's two angles. Either you go hire a company, which I like because they have bench strength, they got depth. So if you, let's say you need a cleaner, your cleaner calls in sick, well, they can organize a second cleaner to come your way. If you only have one person that is your only go-to person and they're sick, then it's very difficult to replace them. So I usually like hiring a company that has the proper general liability insurance, which you should check on, that has a really good deep network of people, of trades, like the pool guy and the air conditioning guy. But if you want, you really fall in love with a really good property manager, doing a one-off where they do the combination of the cleaning and the property management in a small team has worked for us. So definitely an angle you can take as well. But have a good team. Interview multiple people, make sure it's a core value fit for you, and then pull the trigger to ensure they got your back. All right, let's run through the final things here as we wrap this up. Pick the right property that suits your specific goals. Don't listen to everyone else. Use them as information conduits. You want to bring information your way, but what's right for you is not right for everyone else. Figure that out first. Use a broker agent that knows their stuff. Totally. This is where we can help. This is our ask. If you need a broker agent in STR space, you're looking anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter. We can, even if it's a place we do not have relationships, we will make relationships to help find someone that knows the market, can help educate you on the STVR market. This is one way our advisory business can help you. Don't make the mistake. Don't go through just Googling top brokers. Use someone who's been there and done it, because there could be a top broker, but they only focus on residential, not STR. So use us. Understand the true costs. Use these tools. These are the great ways to basically ask the right questions to ensure you have the right information. And if you're looking to beat the market, you got to have a rental system in place. You just can't be passive and sit back in your hands. You got to hustle. That's just how it goes. If you're not interested in the money and you don't really want to make a lot of money, it's totally cool. But if you're trying to get that edge, that's what you have to do. And then don't wing it. Use people like us. Again, we have this toolkit. So I'll give a shout out for this toolkit. If you do become a client of ours, and you become a client by connecting with us, advice@luxusgroup.com, we can provide the advice. We have expectations on how we there's referral fees and different things. It's all fully transparent how it works. But you get access to the toolkit and these other additional things. So basically a free service for you, and we get compensated in the event you choose to acquire a property. So if you're interested in that, use us, ping us. This is what we do and something we're really proud of. We love helping people make great decisions and giving them the information they need to make the best decision for their family. That's it. I think we can wrap this up here. I think we can drop that Heather off the screen if you don't mind. Thanks, team. That was 43 minutes. I think I said 20 minutes when I kicked this off. So clearly I did not script this and misjudge the time. So apologies, but thank you for sticking around for the full time. I really hope you got something out of this. In particular, just got you thinking about the value you could create. Remember, there's a lot of money to be made in this space. It's only going to be going up as people through the pandemic. I mean, hotels will always be there and cruise ships, but there's been this drive for people wanting their own specific space. So be part of the game. Get involved. Hopefully this gives you the tools you need to make good decisions. And if you like this, now I'm asking for the fee. If somewhere in that 43 minutes you found a nugget of value, I want you, before you go on to the rest of your day, I want you to go like it. It's one little button, one little click, and then think about someone you could share it with. That for me is the biggest thing. We want people to know what's going on. We want people to make good decisions, and it's free. So, why not? Thank you for your time. It means the world to me. See you on the next episode. Bye for now.